Hi folks, how you doing? It's William here. This is a response to Rab Lennox, who made a response to my original video entitled Faith Schools and Segregation. First of all, as always Rab, thanks very much for taking the time to make the response. I know it's easy for us to flip the camera on and talk about this sort of stuff because we're surrounded by it. You more so than me, but you know my background, so yeah, and it's very similar to the guys on here just now that are constantly banging on about US politics. It matters to them, so whatever the major topic is at the time, then that's going to take up a lot of time and space on here, and that's cool. I couldn't give two tosses about it, right, to be fair. I don't understand it. Anyway, discussed all that before. I just want to touch on a couple of things that you were talking about, Rab. You, correct me if I'm wrong, but you agreed with a good proportion of what was in the video. However, you thought that in the case of, you can only speak about your, obviously I was talking about it through the context of the west of Scotland. And you were talking at it, obviously, in the context of Northern Ireland. So there is, the rules are, as we know, the rules are different in Northern Ireland. And the integration there is going to take a long time. Whereas here in the west of Scotland, for me, I think it's something that would work because there isn't the same baggage that there is in Northern Ireland. The same physical baggage. There's a lot of mental stuff, but there's not the physical aspect to it. And what I mean by that is you had made point about one child saying that his father had been out late at work, and it turns out he works for the RUC. Oh no, it's not. They're not called the RUC anymore. The Police Force of Northern Ireland. And then that could potentially then become a target for one of the nationalist side, and we don't have that here, obviously. And I suppose that's where the frustration comes from my point of view, and where the frustration came from in my vlog. That the people that are hanging on to this stuff here in the west of Scotland are hanging on to it purely and simply because it's like a hobby. For want of a better term, it's like being interested in the troubles in Northern Ireland, picking a side, going to Loyalist or Republican nights, fundraising events, all this. It's a hobby to them. Whereas across the water where you are, it's tangible. It's more, there are people out there with guns in their hand that think they're fighting for a cause. And I'm not saying that on both sides, because there is valid arguments on both sides. But the time for all these valid arguments in Northern Ireland, I think it's time for the arguments and the arguing to stop. I think we would all agree in that. If people in the north, was it Victoria? Victoria had asked, you've just recently put a video on where he had mentioned the recent troubles, and let me see if I can find it, if it was Victoria. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, Victoria had asked about an insight into the troubles and where it comes from politically and what's driving it. That's probably more your that's probably more your area, Rab. But the basics of it, Victoria, if you happen to watch this, is that you have sections of society in Northern Ireland who want Northern Ireland to break away from the UK and join Southern Ireland and be independent. And you've got, those are the Republicans, and then you've got the Loyalists who want to remain part of the Union. And that's the basics of it. You know, there's lots of stuff, injustices in the past, and a lot of history that Rab, I'm quite sure, could make 10-minute videos from now until the end of next year. You know, but that's the basics of it. And the problem that we have over there just now is that people, because of the way politics has been handled, it appears that the bomb and the gun works. And also there's lots of people over there involved in this thing purely and simply for brass tacks, because a lot of it is money laundering and protection money and drug dealing and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot more to it. It's a very, very complicated situation. But going back to what you were talking about, Rab, I can completely understand from your point of view why you think the segregation can be a good thing. Now, at the end of your vlog, you said that maybe things are... What was the comment you made? Maybe it's too early to completely do away with segregation. And I think you're probably right. Things are still far too raw. It's going to be a couple of generations down the line, I think, before you can even start to consider that sort of thing. The thing that worries me though, Rab, and what you were saying, is that in these schools where there is a, you know, both sides are put together, you said that they're reluctant to teach anything about the Troubles. I think that's a sort of subject right now that needs to be left alone, because if you've got kids from both sides in the class, what version of the history of the Troubles do you teach them? Do you know what I mean? Because right now, a lot of the things to do with the Troubles is all about opinion rather than fact. And a lot of these kids, as you know, Rab, a lot of these kids have had this stuff drummed into them their whole life. So, yeah, I think... I think what I'm trying to say is you focus quite a lot on your heritage and your history and your own culture. Sadly, as it stands just now, there's two cultures in Northern Ireland that just aren't compatible. And it's almost like they need to start again and build a new country. More, you know, do you know what I mean? Because the Republicans and the Loyalists, as they stand at the moment, are never going to get on. They're never going to agree politically. They're never going to agree historically, as in a school that's integrated. They're never going to agree what version of the history, the recent history, has to be taught. So, I know it would be a bitter pill to swallow, but maybe that stuff's best left where it is at the moment for a generation or two, and then when people are integrated, and that must be tough for somebody like you, Rab, where because you're so steeped in your Ulster Scots heritage and something you're very, very proud of. But maybe at the moment that's just a sacrifice that's going to have to be made, because surely peace is more important than whose history, whose heritage is taught. You made a point in the video as well. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. If I'm not, turn off. You also said in the video that maybe you're a little bigoted. I don't think you're bigoted in the least, Rab. I think you've been surrounded with this stuff for years, that it would be very, very hard to be in that situation and not come down on one side. And feel, and you know my views on it. We've spoke about it many times. But it would be very, very hard to live in that situation and not feel that one side has either the moral high ground or the one side is right and one side is wrong. But like everything else, I think we can agree as well that if you go far enough back in history, we can all find something that's going to service our views on something. So that's the thing. It's not ideal. Of course it's not ideal that you've got kids that are going to be integrated and the teachers and the curriculum, you're kind of walking on eggshells because you don't know what you can address and what you can't. But maybe that's just the way it's going to have to be to heal some wounds. Because if we keep teaching the same stuff over and over and over, like a wise man once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Maybe it's time for the kids of Northern Ireland to write a new chapter, if you like, and try and let the past go. And there's going to be some casualties along the way. There is going to be a bit of culture and a bit of, a bit of heritage lost. But maybe that would be a small price to pay for peace, proper peace. I don't know. It's a tough one, Rab, and I'm glad I'm not the guy over there trying to build these bridges and fix these issues. So I can completely understand where you're coming from. I think in an ideal world, everyone would go to school together. We would all be taught history. But then, you hear people saying history is only ever taught from the perspective of the victor in any conflict. So, and fine well that Republicans are going to see themselves as a victim, and they're going to see the loyalists as the aggressor, and loyalists are going to see the Republicans as being the aggressor and them being the victim. And it's, what side I come down on, Rab, but all I'm saying is that maybe, just maybe, some generations over there have to just take their medicine and say, do you know what, for the greater good, maybe this is a topic that's best left alone at the moment until the bridges are burned and people can look at each other's points of view. Because I think that would be the key. I think the key to peace in Northern Ireland is if Republicans can look at the loyalist point of view and understand it. Maybe not agree with it, but understand it. And vice versa. So that each side can look at each other and say, because no one wins in this. No one wins, everyone loses. And I would be the first to shout from the rooftops about guys like Martin McGuinness and the guys for Sinn Féin that are helping shape policy in Northern Ireland, and the prisoners that were let out under the Good Friday Agreement, and say, it appalled me. It made me angry, because I know people that have been deeply affected all through their life with this stuff. I know I've got friends who have family in Northern Ireland I've got friends in Northern Ireland that have lost family members. Now I've always been more affiliated, for want of a better term, with the loyalist side of things, and I'm probably more sympathetic to their plight. But holding up, because for every family that's in the loyalist side that's lost family members, there's someone in the Republican side that's the same, and it's the people in power and the paramilitary organisations need to see that they have no ammunition anymore, and they need to see that it's time to realise that the bomb and the gun doesn't work, if you feel so strongly about a cause, it's like here in Scotland, you know, the Scottish Nationalist Party are fighting tooth and nail to try and make Scotland an independent country. But they're doing it in Parliament. And I think if both sides could try and see each other's point of view, then maybe that's a step towards, however much it might stick in this generation's throat, it's a step towards future generations having peace and not having to worry about bringing a boyfriend or a girlfriend home that's of the wrong denomination. So yeah, I mean, it's two completely different scenarios, Rab. So I completely understand your views on it and how you think the heritage and the culture and what can be taught, and in particular when you were saying about in these mixed schools, they pussyfoot around the troubles. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you have kids in Protestant schools being taught the Loyalist history, and you have kids in the Nationalist schools being taught Republican history, and all that's doing is fueling the flames for future generations. What you hope is that some of the parents, like yourself, Rab, can teach Elizabeth, for example, that yeah, this is a part of our history, but you don't go around doing what's been done in the past, and that's fine. That would be fine, Rab, if every parent in Northern Ireland was the same as you. But we know that's not the case. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and like I said, I'm glad I'm not the guy sitting down trying to pick my way through this mess. But I'm starting to change my mind, Rab, and I know I'm sitting here in the west of Scotland, miles away from it all. But my opinion was always no. The Loyalists' side of things, the Unionist side of things, were never listened to, and all this stuff having an allegiance with that side. But maybe it's time to stop picking sides and think about future generations rather than what's right now. What's it to say? Short-term pain for long-term gain. And I'm quite sure, and I know this, I'm stating the bleeding obvious here, Rab, but I'm pretty sure you would sacrifice some of the heritage and give way a little if Elizabeth could live in a Northern Ireland where it was genuinely trouble-free and not just politically trouble-free, as in it just doesn't get in the papers. So yeah, I don't know, I've just rambled for 18 minutes and I don't even know if it makes any sense, but I'm going to throw it up anyway. So yeah, I understand how you disagreed with certain points I'd made, Rab, but obviously that's because the situation you're in, the thing that frustrates me here is that people here use the Troubles in Northern Ireland as some sort of a badge of honour, some sort of hobby. It's like an interest, and something to talk to their mates about in the pub. So that's why, from a West of Scotland point of view, I think it's an easier problem to fix. That clearly it's an easier problem to fix than it is in Northern Ireland. However, it's a bigger worry, obviously, on your side of the water than it is here. So yeah, I think we fundamentally agree. I don't know. Feel free to make another response video. This is quite good. But I think the only way forward is integration. It's just how you do it. And if it means starting again and letting that recent history lie for a generation or two, then maybe that's what needs to happen, sadly. Because you know fine well that if the kids are going to be taught anything about the Troubles recently, it's going to come from a bias of one side or the other. And I don't think that should happen. I think it should simply be the facts. But then what are the facts? Anyway, it's 10:25. I'm going to my bed soon. So there you go, Rab. They have 20 minutes to get your teeth into. Anybody else that's lasted this long, congratulations. I'm off. Peace.